Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I'll probably do a introduction. I want to start with this thing because today's Saturday, October 19th. I got a video coming out on Sunday, so this video will probably come out on Tuesday. And, I should have covered this earlier. I used to cover this stuff more on my backup channel, my other channel, Podcast Now. But this guy, Liam Payne of One Direction, I know almost nothing about One Direction other than a little bit about Harry Styles because he, whatever he was putting on those dresses or whatever was happening. I covered him a little bit. And I know of one song of One Direction. And I thought I'd cover this because of that, like my little knowledge here. Hotel guest details Liam Payne's disturbing final moments and One Direction comment before fatal fall. And so some person said, I came into the hotel and he was waiting for the elevator. It was so clear he wanted someone to recognize him. And so there was something a bit desperate about him. And there he is there, the guy. There he is at the hotel. And she said, so they knew who he was, but they didn't say anything. And he said, when the lift came, he suddenly said to us without any prompting, yes, I'm Liam, really, drawing it out. And they said, all right, come on, you lot, get in the elevator with me. I love a good cuddle. Um, you know, he's a little desperate here. So I guess then he said, and then he opened his emails and saw one that upset him. Suddenly he looked at the computer and shouted, F this boop, mate, and started bashing his computer on the ground. And really shocked by the story of my life singer's outburst. And so she went up to her and said, she went up to him and said, I went over and asked, are you okay? But he just kind of grunted, and then he said, I used to be in a boy band. That's why I'm so fucked up. And so, I'm not laughing at him dying, but, this is classic former boy band behavior. Apparently, he was jealous of the other people. Okay, so today's Monday, October 21st. I'm editing this. So I must have started this Sunday. No, I guess I started on Saturday. And so I took yesterday off. And so I want to make it clear here because there's always people get upset at me because I'm sort of cavalier and I joke around about, when there's these so-called tragedies. But this wasn't a tragedy. First, I don't even know if it's real. Like, this is just a show. Like, to all of us, it's just a show. And, this person I know very little about. I know that boy bands are completely staged and fake. But if this happened, if the official story about this guy who was miserable and had all this failure post One Direction, there's always these guys in the boy band that are the lesser thans. There's the Harry Styles and this, if somebody said name three people from One Direction, maybe they could name Harry Styles. And then, after that, most people would, yeah, I don't know. So like there's that kind of thing, right? Justin Timberlake, these boy bands, they produce maybe one star. And even that guy's like a goof. Harry Styles is a mess in his whatever he's doing. But, this is not a tragedy. This guy was miserable. He said it right there. I'm effed up. I was in a boy band. Because that's what it is, right? It's horrible stuff. It's like goofy. There's a lot of sexual abuse in these things. There's all this stuff. And these, people come out of these situations, young celebrities, people who are young kids who are made famous. Demi Lovato, like it was a drug addict, all the famous stars from Disney, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, all those people, right? Ryan Gosling, they're all messed up after those things. These Disney kids, these boy band members, it's messed up. Like once you've done that, your life is ruined. Whether you die young, whether you die old, it's a tragic life. There's supposed success, but they're miserable, messed up people, and most of them have horrible lives, right? And whether they die tomorrow or in 30 years, it doesn't matter. They're miserable. Their lives suck. Like it doesn't. People talk about death being tragic. Well, if you're living a life where you're going in the right direction, it is. Not one direction, but the right direction. If you're going in the right direction, than you dying young when you're on your way to, if you're getting better and you're like entering rehab or something, if you're turning a corner and then you die, yeah, that's a tragedy. But if you're just going in the wrong direction, which almost all these celebrities are and most people are, it's not tragic at all, right? It's a relief, It's just maybe it's stopping you from doing more damage that you're going to have to make up in a future existence, right? But anyways, let's get back into it here. And so what I want to point out is I know a little bit of this. Well, first here is a video of Maya Henry alleging her ex was seemingly stalking her went viral on social media. So
I
his
always felt like it was
so his ex-girlfriend is this person.
I always felt like it was a manipulation tactic to keep me, I don't know, it's kind of complicated, but I always felt like it was so that I could continue to feel bad for him. And because he would always message me, ever since we broke up, like, oh, I'm not well. He would always play with death and be like, well, I'm gonna die. I'm not doing well. And there was one time I tried to get him help, and then he was like, not taking it, he would text my mom, I'm not doing well, have Maya contact me because I wouldn't respond. And it's just always the same cycle.
Ugh.
And every time that, like, for
So
example,
she released this like 2 days before he died, right? And those of us who have been in relationships with people who use suicide or self-harm as a way to manipulate your behavior, it sucks. It's in the drama. And, sometimes, a lot of times you doubt that they actually will do it. And the thought might cross your mind, like it did in my case, to say, all right, go ahead, do it, right? Like, stop talking about it. Like, not that you want them to do it. You just think that they're bluffing and they're using it as, anybody who says they're going to kill themselves, which a lot of kids do nowadays, which, all the softness and all the, focus on mental health and depression. And people, kids get sort of, they get boosted and supported for saying that they're suicidal or depressed, right? It's sort of a badge of honor instead of looking at it as weakness, because it's been cultivated in our culture now. It's been, pushed out there with athletes and all these people saying you should talk about your mental health to everybody you know, and the more effed up you are, the more, relatable you are, and the more that it's good for you. And, you shouldn't keep it a secret. I mean, certainly the ones you love, it's if you're sincerely feeling this way. But oftentimes it becomes copycat behavior, or, behavior where people are doing it to be emotionally manipulative, right? And so this guy, there's other factors to his death. Apparently he was unconscious when he went over the balcony, so it looks like murder. And there's all these various stories about this on page 6. I saw some of them. But his ex-girlfriend is saying that the guy was constantly harassing her and stalking her, and then trying to manipulate himself back into her life by saying that he was, contemplating self-harm or was thinking about dying.
example, when I announced my book, he did the same thing. He called my mom. I think I'm not going to be around much longer. And
Oh my God.
and I don't play with death. So I'm like, if you say this, I'm going to try and help you no matter what you've done. And I think he took advantage of my family's kindness. And I was like, if you want to go back to rehab, I'll help you.
So, one thing about this girl, she doesn't play around with death. Anyways, I've lived this, and there's people who use this as a manipulative tactic, and it's becoming more and more common with this generation of depressed kids. The reason I'm showing you this is uh, that this is his lines in the song "Story of My Life," which I guess got over 1 billion views. I just saw the song again. And my daughter, who committed suicide, who was, my ex and my daughter both were self-harmers. And she used to sing this song when we were in India, before we moved back to America. And then she eventually went to live with my ex. And then a few years after that, she committed suicide. And she used to sing this song, Story of My Life, like a couple verses from it. And so I know the song. I was kind of a little bit familiar with it. I mean, it's a very boy bandy song, and you can see that they feature Harry Styles. But Liam's line, so this is verse 1, Liam, and so it says, she told me in the morning she didn't feel the same way about us in her bones, which is a real weird word, right? because it rhymes with this word here. It would probably be in her heart. But that's what this girl was saying to him. It seems to me that when I die, these words will be written on my stone. That the girl didn't feel the same way. And, again, this is like the song that was years and years ago. I don't know. What are we talking? 12, 15 years ago or something like this? This song was popular. The song was from 10 years ago. And so this kind of played out in real life where, the guy was stalking an ex-girlfriend who didn't want anything to do with him, desperate for attention. The rest of the boy band member was doing better. Again, not laughing at his death. But, some of the stuff's funny because it's a boy band. And, these people, to me, are not like real people. Like, he might have, to me, it's just all a show, right? But anyways, there's something here. Like, this is like foreshadowing. And, there's been other celebrities. Of course, Eric Clapton's son, his 4-year-old son, went over the balcony. But there's been lots of various celebrities who have gone off of a balcony and, plummeted to their death. A lot of people are saying this is tied to P. Diddy. That's always what, whatever's current, people will try to make a link. And maybe there's a link there. I don't know. I don't care. It's just people want to hear more about P. Diddy, and they want to make P. Diddy into a Jeffrey Epstein type situation. And so anytime a celebrity dies between now and whenever this story ends with P. Diddy, they're going to link. People are going to link those things just because that's how it is, right? People want to make these links because that's what the internet sort of devolved into. Liam Payne was dropped by his record label Universal Music just days before his death. Sharon Osbourne blames the music industry for Liam Payne's death. We all let you down. One Direction star Liam Payne dead at 31 after falling off hotel balcony in Argentina. Also interesting that his last name is Payne. There's things that are happening. Like everybody in the truth community always says the elite, I call the controllers, are the ones that are responsible for everything. It's all planned, it's edited, it's all scripted. But there's a divine sort of, there's just things that happen. I have a second voiceover. There's a voiceover here and then a second one where I talk about that happened in my own life. Where there's shows that there's some kind of a sign, right? There's some kind of a, plan. And I find that all the time. That's beyond what the people control the system can control, right? But anyways, let's get into the voiceover here. The thing is that when people see celebrities die, fame is just the idea that the more people know about something, the more important it is, right? Like the idea that more people who know about you, the more important you are. Like the more people who recognize you. Like going out in the street and people recognizing you. But you could be recognized. There's been people who have embarrassed the shit out of themselves on social media, right? Like that guy who cried for the rainbows, and or some kids who, those kids, Charlie bit me, Charlie bite me, those two English kids, and one of them two brothers, and they've grown up, and the kid, there's that kid who said, apparently, and keep on saying apparently, right? That kid. There's stuff like that. And there's people who've embarrassed themselves, people who've fallen, things that disgraced people, who are famous. And they wish they weren't famous. They wish people would recognize them. But being recognized in public is not like some great thing, right? And it's why you're recognized for. It's, why people know who you are, right? And it isn't whether the people think you're great. It's whether you've contributed something and you've offered something, you've been a part of something, that's helped people make the world a better place, something like that. And most of those types of people aren't really recognized, and, the more saintly people. And that's also work. Like people who are famous, signing autographs, having to smile at people, having to be, it's, that's no fun. Like, I'm not into that, right? Like, I just pretending you value somebody you've just met or, whatever it is, right? Trying to make their interaction special. And people and your fans are expecting something more from you than usually you're able to give, right? Like the people who, I have whatever 5 to 10,000 people watch, all my stuff. People over the years, maybe 20,000 people who value what I do here. I don't know. It seems like it's a lot of people. If I saw the 20,000 people, I'd be overwhelmed. But for me, I'm just sitting here talking, right? And there's people who've been affected positively about, by the content I produced, and some of them do the meditation, and there's all these things that, people benefit from. And that's great, and that's more or less why I'm here in terms of the, paying it forward for what I've received in terms of the spiritual benefits from the Sajmark meditation, and, just the other things, being a member of, human race and on planet Earth and contributing something. But the majority of people who are fans of mine, they think that I'm a lot better than I actually am, right? Like all of you who, that really enjoy what I'm saying here, this is me at my best. And I mean, I've seen this with the masters of the Sajmark system. If people met Jesus or Buddha or Krishna or any of these people, they would be impressed in ways that they would have never thought, but they'd also be disappointed in ways that they wouldn't be able to comprehend, right? Because the person's going to have human side and their divine side. And for people who are famous just for being actors or athletes, they're good at something, or they've been lucky enough to, or unlucky enough to become, famous, iconic people. But it's all performative. And, when you met them, you'd find that they're big ego people, and they're actually kind of worse than the majority of people you know. And they're probably people that you don't value in your life who are much better people than them. And you don't even, people aren't grateful for the work that, your parents do for you, or, people that have helped you, and, people that have benefited you that you don't even know about, right? There's so many things that people have contributed to the human race that have long been forgotten. And these, choochie celebrities that nobody really cares about. And so this thing about fame is this illusionary idea that it has some value and it doesn't, right? And to the person or to you. It doesn't. It's not a currency. I mean, they monetize fame, but it's not really a currency where there's some sort of exchange where you benefit from them. There was this time that Taylor Swift was at a church or something, and she didn't want to stop and talk to her fans. And there's some woman who was like 40 years old, and she's like, Taylor, I thought you were always talking to your fans. Can't believe you're not willing to, she was like getting into her car or something. Like this person, like Taylor Swift owed her something. Not that Taylor Swift is a piece of shit, but like that, she doesn't owe these people like, her time and effort and, give them their special moment, right? Like she can do that, and it's, that's something that they're supposed to do. And they have publicists and handlers telling, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to, take a picture with a baby, this, politician bullshit. And so the cost of fame is, your time and effort and energy to create some sort of a narrative about yourself that isn't true. And so these people who die, like this guy Liam, who was obviously, not that great. He was probably the worst member of the group, and he's the least successful of them after the band broke up. This boy band crap, which is, just these contrived bands that, people don't respect and, people make fun of and they downgrade. And, there's maybe some hidden meaning in his death, like I showed you, like I said about the song. But in reality, none of it really matters. Like, and these people thinking that, like, when Trump wins, he wins. He doesn't win. He's then president, and what happens with his presidency, because he didn't have a winning presidency, he had whatever he had the first 3 years, and then he got COVID, and he got COVIDed, and, he left as sort of disgraced and, most people's eyes, other than his, delusional followers. And Kamala Harris is going to get the same thing, right? Like, she was so happy when she got nominated to run. Remember, she was beaming with so much, she was just so happy when she was, they snaked Joe Biden. And when she loses, which it looks like she will, or if she wins, which will still be bad for her, doesn't mean that you win. Like, doesn't mean your life gets better. Doesn't mean like you've established something. Like sometimes you think things are really important. If you got them, you'd be happy. And more often than not, like including winning the lottery, when it happens, it makes your life even more miserable. And so that's the first piece of this. The second thing I want to address, just a few comments here. There's a bunch of positive comments, people saying, and I think it was about the video I was talking about, when people think I'm a master or whatever it is, right? And this person said, so I got a bunch of positive comments in a row, and this person said, "You're a loon." You're a loon. Joe Biden's worst gaffe yet. Obama clowns himself. An epic comment takedown. And so I don't know what they're upset about, right? But that was funny. It just struck me as funny. And then this other comment was more about the spiritual system I do. Paul, does a person need a spiritual leader to clean the grossness inside, or is there a technique a person can do for themselves? Great channel. Well, I explained the cleaning process in the Sajmark system, which you can do yourself. And then there in the Gratefullness Meditation YouTube channel. And there's lots of explanation about the cleaning process there. But what's said in the Sajmark system, in terms of the cleaning of some skaras, impressions that keep people bound to planet Earth, that when somebody cleans somebody else, they're able to penetrate to deeper levels. And when we do our own personal cleaning, it's like superficial stuff that happens on a day-to-day basis, but we're not able to clean, on a deeper level, and like past life shit and stuff like that. And so that's just how it's that's how it's taught in the Sajmark system, the cleaning process. And you can notice the difference between, there's individual sittings and these individual cleanings that are part of the Gratefullness Meditation channel. And those of us who've experienced the benefits of cleaning system, there's a big difference between what we would do personally. And some cleanings are better than the others, like you just, either in a sitting or what you do personally, in terms of like a half hour of cleaning every night. But if you don't do either of those things, there's a process of bogam, which means experience in Sanskrit. And that's like these samskaras. Like, let's say you were born in a previous life, you were an alcoholic, and all these events unfold, so you'll be addicted. It might be a different form of addiction. It might not be alcohol. It might be, drugs or fentanyl or whatever. It could be something else. It could be gambling. Maybe, I don't know. But usually it's a similar thing. So if you died and you didn't deal with your addiction in a previous existence, and you died with that addiction, then when you're reborn, which makes sense, you're going to, the circumstances are going to unfold so that addiction will be dealt with in this life, and that's called bogam, or experience. And if you do it right and you overcome that, and then that's cleaned off. Only if you embrace God in some way and you realize what you're doing is wrong and you figure a way, out of it, right? You're able to sort of transcend that. And so, those are just the, kind of the bare basic facts about the thing. But there's a lot more in the Gratefullness Meditation channel for those people interested in, pursuing this. It's free and it's a personal thing that you do and participate in. But I've really benefited from the cleaning process. There's a transmission that's given and then there's the cleaning. And they're both been really effective for me. Like I have gone through some bigger cleanings where something that was really, blocking my spiritual progress was removed. And, I'm really grateful for the Sajmark system for that. Anyways, let's get into some more of the content here. Okay, I want to add a little bit to my earlier voiceover. I don't think I said the stuff about, I'm being shadow banned or whatever everyone is. And, the whole thing. I mean, now YouTube is starting to recommend my videos less. There's less and less people coming to my channel saying, oh, I haven't seen your stuff in years, right? I had interactions with these YouTube bots, which I talked about a long time ago, maybe 3 months ago. And they said there's no such thing as shadow banning. Then all of a sudden, they started to recommend my channel again. Of course, it's an election year. So they're more into, making as much money as possible. This is when there's the most ad money for YouTube. And, it's been a little bit better for me, but not nearly what it was in 2020. So I don't know if they're paying less money per ad or they're running less ads. But I'm getting, about the same amount of views as I got back then. It is what it is. But anyways, subscribing, resubscribing, commenting, thumbs upping, and donating through the membership program. These things are what keeps my channel going and relevant. And so I had just a brief story I want to tell. There's some bizarre stuff I'm going to cover. There's stuff with Trump going to a McDonald's in Pennsylvania and working there. It's so scripted and goofy, and Trump's so goofy. And Trump's just getting weird. Like, he's definitely deteriorating a little bit. And then Saturday Night Live covered Kamala Harris's interview. And of course they made it look like she was the victim of being interrupted. Alec Baldwin plays Brett Baer, and he just sucks so bad. So I'll show a little bit of that and talk a little bit more about that, disastrous, desperate interview on her part. Something more I was going to say. Today's Monday, October 21st. This video will be out tomorrow, I believe. And so I just want to tell the story about the lottery. So, the lottery seems to be going up to $1 billion at times, the Mega Millions and the Powerball. And if the lottery is not completely rigged and nobody actually wins, you're making somebody who's usually probably pretty poor a billionaire, or maybe a group of people, if they share tickets or something, will go from being just getting by to having $1 billion. And that's not a good idea. I don't know how that would make your life better. Like having that much wealth dumped on you immediately when you're someone who's not used to having that and you really haven't earned it. Like you just won the lottery, right? Like it's just a silly thing. But years ago, I worked in a treatment center that when I had gone back and got my master's degree in counseling. It was my second treatment center working with sex offenders. This was with teenage sex offenders. And many of them had committed adult crimes and had parole officers and things. They were 15 to 20, at the age. A lot of them were in some things they had done in school or something like that. And it was a horrible environment. And at the time, my family was living in a cockroach-infested apartment. I was making $32,000, and there was, I had 5 kids and was going to have a 6th. And I had, hope for my family at that time. We eventually would move to a homestead, and, my big thing was my family, my kids. That was something I was focused on. And when I worked at this first treatment center, there was a kid who was his mom had sexually abused him, and he had been in treatment since he was 6 or 7 years old. He was now 10 or 11, so he'd been in this treatment center for 4 or 5 years. And his mom was foreign. She was Greek, and she was foreign in the sense that she still had a very heavy accent. And you had to listen, as a staff, you had to listen to their phone calls. And she would just sit there, and you had to listen into this phone call between her and her son because she had abused him. And she would just weep, and she'd just say, let's call the kid, his name was Tom. She'd go, Tom. Tom. She'd say his name over and over again, weeping. And I said to whoever's my supervisor, if I ever had to do that again, I was quitting, because it was the worst 15 minutes of my life. I had to listen to that, right? Really gross. And this kid, he had a visiting resource who had a kid his age. And she loved him. She's almost thinking about adopting him. But this kid was a real menace. He had sexually abused a bunch of other kids in school. He was like a little thief, and he was always in trouble and just angry, filled with rage and hate, just a miserable person. But when he went to this woman's house, he was great. But it turned out she was just letting him go around the neighborhood and play with other kids because she just thought, she knew more. Because the kid, when he was with her, was great, right? And she was leaving him alone with her son. And it ended up she got pulled as a resource. And the kid just went off and spiraled even worse down into these, he was just this negative, hateful, golem-like creature. He just got really just desperate. And he was in the timeout room and he got in trouble. And like I used to do this, we do this 9 o'clock prayer in my meditation that you pray everybody comes to spirituality. And sometimes I would be in the timeout room, it'd be 9 p.m., and I would just, like, I would see the kid's aura, like there would be a light behind the kid. And oftentimes the kid would settle, like they'd be angry or whatever, and they'd just sit down in the timeout room. And like I wouldn't close my eyes, but I'd be praying, like with my eyes open. This, I would just have it in the back of my mind, this prayer that everyone would come to spirituality, right? And it was a weird thing that these kids would just settle and relax when that one happened, like whenever I was down there in the timeout with one of these kids. And the kid was sitting there and he started to cry, and he'd never cried. Like he was just like, this tough kid, like he wasn't like a kid that beat up other kids, but like tough, like, there's a certain thing that happens to kids that they just know they're going to be institutionalized the rest of their life. They're going to go from one institution, whether it's a mental facility, to a prison or whatever it is. This kid had no plan, like no hope. Nobody wanted him, and he just started crying. And I said, what is it that you want, like out of life? And he said, I just want a family that loves me. I looked at him and I was like, well, that's never going to happen, right? Like maybe, he's kind of broken. I can't imagine him having a good marital relationship where he would have that kind of, but he's not going to have a family as a kid. Like he wanted parents and these things. And he had it like teased with, this woman sort of teased it with him. Right. And I thought about it, I was working this job and I had a, degree in human services, and I later get my master's in counseling. And I realized that you really couldn't help any of these kids. I mean, these desperate kids and pretty much anybody else, because the kind of things that people need, and when you think about adult, people with, I mean, everyone has some sort of, mental issues or whatever they might be. I've said this before. People who are wrecked, who have been really abused, there's just no helping them. Like they're gonna, and I had that with my ex. My ex. She had been sexually abused by her dad, but her mom has been emotionally and physically abusive. And they were like, her dad was like a CEO of a company, like some, he had been really successful financially, like a business guy, educated, and her mom, like they were sophisticated people. They weren't like low life people. And her brother and her had talked about their mom being worse, even though the dad had sexually abused her. Like she was the worst of the two. And, my ex would just have these mental breakdowns. She would get suicidal, cut herself. We'd have arguments. She'd go, I have to go hide the knives. It was just, it was just, I've talked about this at length in my journey series and some of the other videos, right? But it was just somebody who was like broken, who said to me once she was broken, like it just, and a lot of people now, and these kids growing up, like this word of being broken, and, they get sort of, they get support and sympathy from people by being broken and talking about being abused. And, it becomes like a whole, badge of honor or something like this. But, in reality, like you're low functioning, like you don't have it. You're just, it becomes something where you're self-absorbed and being a constant victim, which my ex, like, this, whole victim thing I talked about. Right. And, it wasn't married when this kid was saying this, this thing about needing a family that loved him. But my idea came that, I was just going to have to, if I want to make the world a better place, like I had to have a really good family. Like I had to have, a situation where kids could evolve. And that was part of the Sajbar, the meditation that I do, is that souls would, in one of the talks, the third master system said that good souls, don't have places to incarnate, like higher developed souls and spiritual souls, that, I mean, there's people who have a impoverished situation, and, some of them are capable of love and loving their kids, but, in most situations, people are so assed out and so desperate and so zombified, and and there's just no intellectual, a lot of times lack of education, lack of protein in the diet, to help to build like, a good mind and brain and physical body and things, and lack of all these things, right? And just a safe environment. And kids who grow up in unsafe environments, they spend a lot of their energy just trying to survive and navigate. the abuse and the difficult circumstances because their lives are on the line and they're threatened. Sometimes they have to grow up and become adults too fast, and they don't learn to you learn through playing, and a kid who's playing and just going in and developing an internal world. Kids sitting there and playing imaginary games with their friends, or just whatever, and reflecting and having thoughts, and being able to be in a safe environment, as opposed to like having to spend a bunch of your time and energy looking around and making sure you're safe, right? Which is like you don't develop your internal world because you're in crisis and trauma, and you're having all this, all the bad things that go along with stress and the cortisol and all the, the health things that go along with it. Now with, of course, the obesity and, all this poison and toxic food kids are eating. And so there are not a lot of great environments that, there are people who have money and are able to, kids have a better material life, but oftentimes those people are not spiritual, they're not loving, they're not attentive to their kids in a real way. They might run around and do all these activities with their kids, but they never really connect, and they never guide their kids, and they never love them, and they never help them reach their spiritual potential. And so higher developed souls, ones that are coming down for spiritual evolution, don't have a place. There's very few good opportunities for them in terms of picking, the right situation, parental, the parental situation, the other things. And so, it became like a sort of goal of mine to create that kind of environment where souls that would come down, to my family would be able to be better than me and be better prepared than I was to be a spiritual person. Because I recognize like my own upbringing and my own, whatever I had going on as an American, these things, hurt me to some extent as a spiritual person, like, having a journey back to the source, because the American lifestyle, my incompetent parents, my mom was, sort of religious and spiritual, right? So, there was that. That was one of the benefits. And my dad was, reflective, I think, at times. He was, really incompetent as a dad and a kind of person, but I guess he was a little bit philosophical. Mostly not, but, mostly immature and narcissistic, but, whatever. And so I was given some advantages. But American lifestyle and American upbringing, American attitude isn't about. It neglects the spiritual side. And so anyways, it became a goal of mine to create a family environment where the kids, higher developed souls could come into it. And, they would be able to go beyond what me and whoever, my wife was going to be, were able to do. And, progressively, that's how it should be, where each generation succeeds the previous generation in spiritual development. This idea that these indigo kids were coming, and the master of the system said these souls were particularly choosing to be born into a spiritual situation, right? And so, from this interaction I had with this kid, I was like, I'm not going to help any of these kids, very little or whatever it is, or anybody I work with in terms of professionally. There once in a while was going to be a great client, and I've talked about this in previous videos. There was kids or people who came into this, whatever, the counseling services I was working for, and they were just better. Like they were motivated, and and you get like 1 out of 50 or 1 out of 100 like that. But most of them are just surviving and just, spinning their wheels and toiling, without making any progress in life, and they don't have much of an opportunity to progress. And so it's it's kind of depressing work, because especially at the beginning when you have to work with like treatment center kids, or you have to work with kids in outpatient that are, impoverished and living in, bad situations with like crackhead parents or whatever. And the institutions themselves are profiting off, they have worked out a way to survive financially by, sort of monetizing this stuff. A lot of it has to do with medicating the kids and this kind of thing, and getting Medicaid money, Medicare money, or whatever it is, governmental funding from, in terms of counseling services. But the kids just don't gain anything from it, or the families or whatever. And so anyways, that's like the first part of the story. And so getting back to the lottery thing. So I'm working at this treatment center. This is a totally different treatment center than the one I told you about when the kid was younger. And these kids are teenage kids. And now I have a family and I have a master's degree in counseling. We live in a cockroach infested apartment. I'm making not enough money to support the family. My ex had a couple of kids from a previous situation, and it was a bad divorce that went on for years. It's contentious and like it was just stressful. My ex would have these, mental breakdowns regularly, and I was just like completely wiped out. And I'm trying to, create some kind of a great family, and there's some hope. Like we're doing some things, and eventually we would move out to the country, and we would start a homestead, and some of the things that I talk about here, and there were some movements that we made, and there was always this hope that things would get better, and there were signs with the kids themselves that that this would be worthwhile, right? That this somehow this would turn around, and there's two paths, right? With anything, there's the high end where something could go, and then there's the low end. Like if you have a business or you have any kind of a project or goal, there's the worst case scenario and there's the best case scenario. And, for my situation, it seemed like it would be one or the other because there was some higher nature in my ex, and she was a spiritual person to whatever extent, but she was just broken. And, she's gone to an Ivy League school, smart, educated, she had some abilities like psychic abilities, things like this from, a lot of people who have been sexually abused or abused develop these types of, psychic abilities, but they can go either way because a person's so fragmented and, whatever. So anyways, I'm working at this place and they had this salad bar, and usually I brought my own food, and I could eat at the salad bar, whatever. It costs a little money or something. But, they had cafeteria food. And for some reason, I didn't bring my lunch, and occasionally, I would eat there, and I chose to eat the salad bar because whatever they were serving for food was like disgusting. At the salad bar, they had fortune cookies. Like this is a cafeteria in a treatment center, right? And so I get one of the fortune cookies, which I got like one before, and they were horrible. They tasted bad, but I just like, whatever. And I open the fortune cookie, and it says, your family is a masterpiece of nature, which was a bizarre fortune, right? Like it's a bizarre fortune. And I was like, it was sort of a confirmation to me of everything I was trying because I was struggling and it was a tough time, whatever it was. I was working in this horrible prison-like environment and then going home to a cockroach-infested apartment with a spouse who was having mental issues and often couldn't get together, and, a bunch of kids run around, and it was not like, it was tough. And it had 6 numbers on it, like a number is printed on the fortune cookie. And so I was like, oh, I got to play this in the lottery. Like I had never played the lottery because like I had bought lottery tickets, and sometimes you were like, I wasn't even within 5 numbers of getting one of the numbers right. Like I'm like, this thing, I don't think I ever got a number right. I played the lottery like once or twice in my life. I didn't, like, it wasn't something I thought was like, I knew it was bullshit, right? But, I had this idea that somehow the family would be like a masterpiece, and this would be, worthwhile, and the kids would grow up and be spiritual kids. And, at that time there was this hope, and, eventually we progressed to a homestead, and there was things that could have went better. There's things that could have developed, but they just didn't. And at the end, I realized there was no hope because my ex was so broken that there was just none. And there was no, it's people who grow up and what they're used to. There's an NF song, the rapper NF, good song called Happy. And, the song's about like what it would be like if I could be happy because I'm so used to feeling depressed and shitty, right? Like there's so many people feel like that. People have been in an abusive situation. When they're happy, they feel uncomfortable, which is well expressed in this song if you've heard it. People who are like, it's just, they're not comfortable being happy. They're not comfortable being successful. And this is what I'm talking about, winning the lottery. They're not comfortable being rich. Like people find their comfort zone. And, not like being rich is, people think it's great and it's not. Like, it's especially people who are billionaires. Like it's a burden. Like wealth becomes a burden. And of course, it's not even real. People like Donald Trump and the rest of these people. These people who gain power in these things and money and whatever success and fame, they become curses, not blessings. They think it's a blessing, but it's going to be a curse, right? But my ex was one of those people who couldn't be happy because the situation where she grew up in, like she just felt comfortable being in a bad situation. So that's the nightmare that I was living, and I had no idea because like I thought that the potential for success was there, but it wasn't. But anyways, I play these numbers on the lottery, and I get 4 out of 6, which is crazy. And I get $100, and I'm like $100. I've never even got one number right. And like getting 3, like getting half of them, seemed impossible, right? But getting 4, I was only 2 away. I got the majority of the numbers right, and I only got $100. I'm like it's just I mean, how many people are getting like even one number right, and just of course that's how they make $1 billion, and they could say they have $1 billion prize money. And I thought about it, I'm like, this is complete confirmation because I had a spiritual moment when I read this fortune. And I break open this like non-edible GMO crappy fortune cookie, and I just got for a goof. And I never ate lunch there, and I just I think I'd seen the fortune cookies, and maybe I'd gotten one before, and I just said I'll get one. Maybe I was like in a bad mood, or just it was a like weird day or something. And so I kept the thing. I laminated it because I wanted to remember this is like a sign from God, like that this somehow my everything was going to work out. And I thought, but why not? It would have been so much easier to have a masterpiece of a family if I had gotten all 6 numbers, right? Like, why not go all the way? But like, it was certainly a sign because, I didn't believe in the lottery, and I knew like I was almost sure I was going to win. Like, when I saw the numbers, like I just had this energy, like, oh my God, this is going to happen, right? And so when I got 4 numbers, I'm reading the numbers, and I'm like, oh my God, I think I got all the numbers, right? And, and it was like this, almost like a miracle thing that happened. But, it was just close enough. But I was, talking to my wife about it, going, I'm glad it didn't work out because, I mean, my family broke up like badly. Like we went through a very difficult divorce, the India thing. People have heard the story before. And I don't have a good relationship with my kids, and it's just, all of it. Like it just my one daughter ended up being self abusive like my ex, and started cutting herself and threatening suicide, and then she took LSD later on and had a bad trip, and someone had given her a gun, and she was just so impulsive, and she shot herself. And which was, I mean, it ended up being like the opposite of a masterpiece, God's masterpiece. Like it's just a disaster. And I think about it from time to time, and it wasn't like one thing could have been different. It was, it was like doomed from the start, right? And my kids, none of them are, my son that lives with me now maybe would do the meditation. I don't know. Like he's really doing well. He's like really kind of ended up being the best one, the youngest, which is bizarre, but he's sort of getting it, and he's now, he's got a kind of a cool job. He's selling stuff. He's become a salesman, and he's really psyched about it. And he's trying to, he's just and I have the best relationship with him of any of the kids. He's the only one I still have any kind of communication with, just whatever. But the sad part is that none of them are going to exceed me, be better than me spiritually, and I don't know, like in terms of just development, which is the whole point. Like the whole idea is you have kids and they get better. But of course, like when I thought those things, it seemed like that was a possibility. But we all know what's happened with this generation of kids. They're so much, worse off. I mean, I don't know if something's going to happen once the collapse happens, where they'll be, activated in some way. But, this idea of, like I've said before, we're all these indigo kids. Like these kids are a mess. Like 60% of them are depressed. They're self-absorbed. They're weak, and they're, there's like the lottery has to happen for them in some way, like some spiritual lottery, for them to be, we're just getting idiocracy. My wife and I went to couple of different places. And I was looking around, and I'm like, these people are all fucked up even more than they used. Like, I went to a Walmart and some other place. I can't remember the other places. There's just a grocery store and some other stuff. And I was like, these people are so fucked up. It's even worse than I thought. It's worse than I remember. Like, I haven't gone to Walmart in a while. And we were wondering if it's the, the boop, right? Like, people are just, like, messed up now. Like, even more so physically. Like, so many people just look like they're ghouls that are walking around. And I'm like, I think things are getting worse. I think the people are falling apart. There's just, there's no hope, and people are like zombies walking around or whatever it is. So this idea of the election, and we see how it is. I'll show you the Trump stuff. It's just so depressingly, bad. It's just bad with the McDonald's and some of these other things. I got a bunch of these clips to show you. But we've entered into, like, we got to win the lottery of, like, spiritual development or something. There has to be some major change, like, because the way that we're going is just, the wrong way. It's just not good. All right, let's get into it here. Let me just show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, the title of this video is Rapper Trick Trick Joins Trump on Stage at Detroit Rally. President Trump invites rapper Trick Trick Hearns onto stage rally in Detroit, Michigan. And Trump just sucks at these things. Like, we'll get into it with McDonald's. It just gets weird. And he's so into people's looks. And you'll see this with McDonald's. Like, that's all he talks about. Bizarrely. So I don't know what order I have these videos. I think I have the Saturday Night Live thing I'm going to do next. But we'll start here, and then we'll go to the McDonald's, and then some of this other stuff here. And so he starts off like this.
He had he had hips a little bit smaller than mine.
What are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? Who had hips? Like, I don't know who he's talking about, but he's talking about some other man's hips, right? Now, if you're not gay, why are you talking about another man's hips? Why are you looking at another man's hips? Why are you in front of all these people talking? I mean, he goes on these weird tangents. Like, he's starting to lose it. Like, I think it's because his supporters, this whole idea that he could do no wrong. He could shoot someone in the face at Fifth Avenue. And so he just says weird shit, and he doesn't think anybody's going to leave him because they're not. And, why would they, like, this is weird.
He had he had hips a little bit smaller than mine. He had shoulders a little bit larger than mine. See, he went in the right proportion. That's the way it's supposed to be, right? Thank you, Tommy.
Tommy had hips, like, let's say they were better hips. He had better hips and better shoulders. My dad once said to me, we didn't have these kind of talks or interactions, but he said that I had, like, nice legs, like, weirdly, not that it wasn't a sexual thing, but he was saying that, like, he compared his legs to my legs, and he wished he had my legs, right? And I'm like, what the fuck? I was in high school. Like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you looking at my legs, you freak? Like, what's, like, why is this ever happening? How did this even happen, right? Like, I don't know how there's this, the show Entourage, and that one character, the kind of funniest character on the show, he was obsessed with other men's calves because his calves were, it's just, like, weird. Like, this thing he has is, he lives in such a superficial world, and you'll see it with the McDonald's interaction. But, like, I don't know if Tommy Hearns, was that maybe that's because was he from Detroit? Hitman Hearns, I don't know. But I don't know who, whatever this was he was talking about. So then he invites this guy up here.
They love him in Detroit, right? They love him in Detroit. Another man that they love in Detroit is a rapper, and he's one of the hottest in the world, actually.
He's in Detroit. So he's talking to these people. Another one who you guys love. He's one of the hottest rappers in the world. He's just hot. He's a rapper, and he's sizzling.
Trick Trick. Where's Trick Trick?
Where's Trick Trick? Where's Trick Trick? Where are you? Come on, Trick Trick. Show yourself.
Trick.
Come on, Trick.
Come here, Trick Trick.
Come on, Trick Trick.
Come here. Maybe we should have him do a little rapping or something, huh?
Yeah, let's do some
Come
rapping.
Here, look at him. He looks good. He looks.
He looks good. Kutrick looks good.
It looks good. It looks good.
I know. I never saw him before, but he's a good-looking guy. Like, his hips are amazing, and his shoulders, and just
Good.
look at Trickster. Look at those hips.
What up, though, Detroit?
Trick.
If y'all know about Trick, y'all know I'm about bringing it all to Detroit. So
Yeah, he is. That's what Trick's known for. He's the #1 rapper out of Detroit. Oh, except for Eminem, and I don't know what the fuck Kid Rock is doing.
please welcome the 47th President of the United States as we make Detroit great again.
Boom, Trick. Trick's bringing it. Yeah, thanks, Trick. What hips? Amazing hips he's got.
Thank you very much. That's great. You have some great people here, I'll tell you.
Yeah, you know what makes them great? They love me, Donald J. Trump. They love Trump. You know, anybody who loves Trump is a great person.
We're going to really we're going to make it great again. Like the country.
Yeah, we are. We're making it great again. I gotta do more Gwen's Walls stuff. Here's some of the stuff with the McDonald's. Let's go to the Saturday Night Live thing, because that's so fucked up. And then we'll get back to Trump and his obsession with other people's looks. So Alec Baldwin shot a coworker in the face and shot the coworker and killed her. And, you know, there was the trial, the stuff, the drama there in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is a place I lived in. I always thought it was sort of a corrupt place, like every other place, but, you know, in a different way, but still the same. And, you know, they used this for publicity, and it looked like they were going to charge him with manslaughter. And, you know, it's hard to say what should have happened just because he's a, you know, liberal piece of shit doesn't mean he's guilty of manslaughter, but certainly was accountable. He was a producer in the show. You guys know all the story, right? And then his wife said that she was Spanish when she grew up as a white girl with English and Scottish parents. She had a white Anglo-Saxon type of parents in Boston. And I always joke that she grew up in Boston, Spain. You know, I had a lot of fun at their expense because they're horrible people, right? But what made me set in on the guy was I realized that his shitty impression of Trump, his non-comedic skills, because he's been a regular on Saturday Night Live, and of course he did that NBC 30 Rock show, which was, you know, an extension of Saturday Night Live. And he's not funny, and he's not good at this, but his impression of Trump was exaggeration of himself, because he and Trump share the same sort of superficial, you know, look-based, narcissistic personalities. Trump is, you know, Alec Baldwin is a Trump copycat. And so they've exhumed this piece of shit to do this hit piece on that interview let's watch just a little of it here.
Now, when I interviewed President Trump, my first question was, what do you think is the most important issue facing our nation? So my first question for you is, give me the exact number of murderers you let loose in this country.
Okay, so the first part to this is that they're making it sound like this is completely biased against Kamala Harris, and yet, you know, Trump deserves everything he gets, but the biased treatment that he's gotten from everything else but Fox, and Fox has never been that great for Trump, right? Now, Trump sucks, like I said, and he deserves it, and yet to pretend that this is somehow rigged against her, you know, she has all the other news media, and she has over $1 billion in spending money, and she's running against Donald Trump, right, who is hated by, you know, 50% of the people in America. And she's so desperate, she still has to go on Fox because she can't win over. You know, so many people want to move on. She can't win over men. You know, so many people want to move on from Trump and Biden. Like 70% of people didn't want to see that election happen again. And that's the whole thing about turn the page, and she's saying all this stuff, right? And, you know, this is a big, you know, her big whole thing is that we're supposed to put Trump in our rearview mirror. And that's a winning message. Like, they know it's a winning message, and she can't execute it because she's unlikable, and men don't like her. Like, that's why she's going on Fox. And she knew what was going to happen when she went on Fox, but she's that desperate, right? Like, all the other networks are with her, and she still can't win. Like, she's getting complete positive coverage from MSNBC and CNN and all the other major news networks, CBS, ABC, all these things, all these other, mainstream news networks, and it's still not good enough. And Saturday Night Live is, servicing her, knee pads in for her, right? And she still can't win, right? She still has to have, Saturday Night Live pretend that it's rigged against her when it's clearly rigged against Trump, right?
Well, Brett, I'm glad you brought up the topic of immigration.
1 million, 2 million?
Okay, the first thing we did in office was to introduce a bill.
10 million? Give me a number.
So they're making it that he's interrupting her and being unfair. But we know that wasn't what really happened, right?
Brett, we came up with a bipartisan
But
bill.
did it have a number, though?
May I please finish?
I'm asking you to.
Well, then you have to listen.
Well, I can't because I'm talking.
Well,
So that's this, right? The interrupting was about her not answering the questions. Like, she was just running her, what she always does in all these interviews, and nobody calls her on it. She just used the same bullshit lines, repeating the same bullshit lines that they've given her because they don't like her personality. They've told her, don't be yourself, because if you do, you'll lose. And so he just follows the script they laid out, the DNC. And she just, either is talking like filler, or she's talking these scripted lines, these talking points. And she always blames Trump, even though she wants to turn the page on Trump, like Gwen Walls said. They should do a thing on Gwen Walls, because that's like, she's like, they did, I don't know, I haven't seen it. But, like, this idea that, like, he's interrupting her, because she wouldn't answer the question, right? And it's aggressive, it's a hit piece, and yet she knew that coming in.
was to introduce a bill.
10 million? Give me a number.
Brett, we came up with a bipartisan
But
bill.
did it have a number, though?
May I please finish?
I'm asking you to.
Well, then you have to listen.
Well, I can't because I'm talking.
Well,
It's not funny. Alec Baldwin sucks. Like, just knowing this sucks, knowing it's completely inaccurate, and just rolling this thing out. This is their cold open.
well, when will you stop?
And maybe when I go to bed?
Okay. Brett, look. I am the only candidate who has prosecuted transnational
So this is one of her lines, right?
criminal organizations. I brought down the Sinaloa cartel.
She did all that stuff, because we've heard it before when they're talking about all these things. Oh, I got an old clip of Kamala Harris being completely narcissistic. I'll show you that next. Like, it's unbelievably how bad she was when she, one of her bogus programs she was rolling out. We'll talk about that in a second.
I brought down the Guadalajara cartel. If I was in Breaking Bad, it would have ended in 3 episodes.
Kaboom! And so then they get into this thing where she's just doing things for like, clickbait talking points they can put out there. Her one-liners. And it's horrible at delivery. The fact that they tried to make this interview like she did great when she was horrible. It was bad. And it's because she's desperate. And it's all because she doesn't connect with men. Like, black men is like, where's her downfall? Because she's, she has to get the same number of black men as Obama and at least Biden. Black people. Like, and it's a demographic she should be doing well with, and she's not. They don't like her. And so, it should be, the way that they paint Trump as a racist. We just saw this thing with Trick. But they paint Trump as a racist. But Trump is actually doing better among African Americans than other Republican candidates. And she should be, winning this demographic, and she's not. And you'd have to ask why. Why don't they like her, right? She'd be the first woman of color as president. They don't like her, and they never did. Like, they like Joe Biden more than they liked her. And Joe Biden's the epitome of an old, gross, racist. He'd talk about corn pop, all that weird shit he said about black kids rubbing his legs, and remember all that stuff. And they liked him more than they liked her, right? And so, as demographics go, she's not winning the demographics she's supposed to win. So how is she going to win? And then men in general, like, overall, she's doing horrible with men. Well, that should tell you something, right? Like, it's not because she's a woman and people don't want to follow a woman. Like, most men have had, women lead them, whether there's their moms or had women bosses or teachers, and many men have had good experience with women in terms of being like reasonable and more reasonable than men, and would think a woman could do a fine job as president. They just haven't had a woman running who would be able to, appeal to men, right, in some way. And so, that's her thing. Let's find that. I'll show you that other clip now. Okay, so this old video of Kamala Harris resurfaced. And let me show you the beginning part here.
And so when I rolled out Back on Track, a couple years in, we learned that there was a participant who went out during the time he was in the program, committed a robbery. There was a horrible injury to the victim. Okay,
so this Back on Track, we'll go back to this here. She created this program called Back on Track. So she got on her knees, she serviced this guy who was twice her age, and he gave her a Mercedes, and he gave her $400,000 worth of jobs, including she was a low-level lawyer that was a prosecutor, and they made her district attorney and then attorney general, which she ran for, and she was district attorney in San Francisco, right? She got these jobs where she was, like a wonderkin, like she was being fast-tracked because she, put on knee pads, and she dated a guy that was 61 who was just breaking up with his wife, and Kamala Harris, used her sexuality to get these jobs, right? Like it's the known thing. So she didn't deserve these jobs. But she was one of those people that was a mover and a shaker in terms of being successful, who was willing to, basically prostitute herself for that success that she now has to whatever extent. If you want to call what she is or what Trump is as successful, I certainly wouldn't, but it's what people think of success, right? Famous, rich, powerful, all these things. But when you look at them as human beings, I'm like, well, this is a failure. But she had these programs. And this one program was called, whatever she said, Second Chance. What was it? Like she said here. Let's go back here.
When I rolled out Back on Track.
Back on Track, right? So Back on Track was a program in which she, it was a joke. It ended up having like 500 kids that she did this with, and 250 of them quit. And what the program was is these were kids who were convicted of a crime and were going to spend some time in jail. But she wiped their record clean, but they had to go to this boot camp that, cost the taxpayers money, whatever it is, probably more than the prison did, per client. It was like a treatment center kind of thing. And they were, this boot camp was supposed to turn them into good people, which of course it wouldn't. Because, going back to what I said before, what they needed was a family that loved them, right? But half the kids would rather do jail time than go through this program. And so she had this program, and the only reason she had the program was she had a few different programs. And remember, I showed you these old video clips of her. One was an interview she did with Matt Lauer. And she created two programs that didn't have any real success or even failure because they didn't get enough people to do them. And she was just doing them so she could write a book. And she could go on the Today Show with Matt Lauer, which is what she did, right? And, they promoted her because they wanted to make her a national figure. And she hadn't really accomplished anything. And she had this thing, we did this thing called Back on Track, right? But the Back on Track program was, again, with 250 participants, and it sort of caught on a little bit nationally, like maybe a few other cities tried it briefly. But it was a failure. It wasn't meant to succeed. It was meant to make Kamala look like she did something when she was district attorney or attorney general, other than getting on her knees and servicing a guy and getting the position. So then she could run for senator and then eventually for president and then as vice president, now as president. And she did nothing. Like she's accomplished nothing because the thing's a joke, right? But her attitude here is abhorrent. So this is from 2010, the same year that she's given this talk here, right?
I'm the DA. I'm not anything other than the DA. So I have this big stick.
What does that mean? You're not anything but other than the DA? And what is this big stick that you speak of? Where is this big stick, and what do you do with it?
I have the bully pulpit that comes with being the DA to talk about the issues as I see them relating to public safety. And on the issue of truancy, that role was...
That was the other program. And I showed you there's a video of a woman, an African-American woman, whose daughter had sickle cell anemia or something like that and was in great pain. And her daughter missed a lot of school because she was having these severe medical issues. And Kamala Harris put the woman in jail, according to the woman, according to this video. And, the woman was doing her best with a difficult situation and certainly wasn't neglecting her child. And Kamala Harris just made everything worse, right? So she had two programs, locking up parents whose kids had a lot of truancy, and then releasing kids who were criminals and putting them in a boot camp that didn't work. And then she wrote this book about it to make it look like she had been ultra successful, and she wasn't. These programs were failures. And they weren't real programs. They were just programs to make her look good so she could advance her political career, right? Like, that's how people like this are. They're not, Trump is similar. They bullshit about their successes so they can, move forward in a career that they don't deserve, right?
Was the role of saying, I'm going to prosecute parents, and hopefully playing in position, doing that, and we did prosecute some cases. And then that was an unintended consequence. And if I could do it over again, I would have made sure that it would not have increased penalties or the ability to prosecute anywhere in the state to prosecute parents, because that was never the intention, and it was never anything that I did.
Yes, you totally did. So this video, this Twitter channel does this kind of thing, has just all Kamala Harris stuff, right? So there's that. Let's get back to the other thing that happened also in 2010.
And so when I rolled out back on track, a couple of years in, we learned that there was a participant who went out during the time he was in the program, committed a robbery. There was a horrible injury to the victim, and turned out that this individual was an undocumented immigrant.
Okay, so how does that happen? Because you're taking somebody's criminal record and expunging them, and you're putting them into a treatment center. The guy doesn't have a social security number. He doesn't have any proof of citizenship. And you have this kid, like, what about his parents? I mean, how, you're supposed to, like, how is this program going to work if you don't even know this kid's not even a citizen, right? And so this is something Trump has accused her of, and her big liability, her big, her burden is immigration. And she took an immigrant that was already going to jail and released him back into the public, and he severely injured somebody. And so instead of feeling bad about that, well, let's let her finish here.
And there was an article that was written and said, Kamala Harris has created a program to shield illegal aliens.
Look at her face here, like she's the victim. This bogus program that she did just so she can promote herself. When I worked in these treatment centers, going back to that, right? Going back to this thing I said in this other voiceover, I had 12 of these kids on my caseload that I was in charge of specifically. I was dealing with their parole officers or the school system that sent them in there or whatever. And I had to sign off on their release. And if they passed through the program, I was basically had to say they passed through the program and they're ready to go back out in the public. But a lot of them weren't, and I didn't feel good about it. And there was nothing I could do about it. And as a team of counselors, we had to deal with this. There was one woman, an older woman, who had she had whatever it was. She had this kid. He was from like New Hampshire or something, Maine, like one of these places, and he got abused by his scoutmasters in the Boy Scouts, and he was really sexual, and everyone had to deal with him because we all had to deal with all the clients, like all these kids, right, in different group settings, and the other kids were freaked out. This guy was just a real pedophile, like a real creep. And he was, now he's in his 20s. And he passed through the program, and the school system no longer wanted to pay for him to be in this program. And they just wanted to release him because he had passed through. But this woman's begging the judge or whoever it was, in charge of this kid, not to let him back out in the public. This is his therapist. And she brought in all these incident reports and all these things that documented his sexual behaviors. And he was going to go out, and his goal was to be back in the Boy Scouts as a teacher. So he was going to be a scoutmaster. And the Boy Scouts is all creepy anyway. And it's been, like perverted. And he was going to work with these kids. And possibly, inevitably he was going to have a string of victims, maybe thousands, hundreds, right? He was one of those really creepy ones. And this woman's crying in court like she came back, I was talking to her, and she was wrecked because she knew this kid was a monster and she couldn't stop him from being released. And if you're a caring person and you're working with these types of personalities and you release somebody back in the public and it hurts somebody, you feel some sense of guilt. Like you feel you feel responsible. And listen to her, look at her.
And there was an article that was written and said, Kamala Harris has created a program to shield illegal aliens. Right?
Right. Like, not that you should feel bad because you had a kid in there and you released him and you obviously didn't do your due diligence and find out what the kid was. Like, you should know he's a legal alien and also that he was potentially a violent, instead of him going to jail, he went through her program and then hurt somebody, right?
And that's when my friends came really in handy to just say, it's because I was upset about the unfairness and the mischaracterization and don't.
And the woman who got hurt, or the victim who got severely hurt because your fucking fake ass program that you put out there didn't work, because of course it wouldn't, because it wasn't a real program. You're just doing it to promote yourself, and people are getting hurt because of this.
People want these things fixed. Don't they understand what innovation requires? And that's when you have to rely on your friends who understand what you do and care about you and will support you without judgment, but also give you critical feedback when you need it.
Yeah, well, your program sucked and it didn't work, and nobody's using her program. It doesn't exist. The two things that she did, there were supposed to be innovations, right? This, whatever this release program's called, whatever she called it back here. Here it is.
And so when I rolled out Back on Track.
Back on Track, right? And then the truancy program both failed. Epic failures. And nobody's doing it. They don't do it in San Francisco's a pit now and a mess. So she certainly didn't make that a better place. Crime's like really bad there. I mean, really bad. And so, none of these things work. They were just self-promoting things that she does. Right? And, people got hurt because of it. And, because these weren't real programs to help people. They were programs to help Kamala Harris build a resume. And, again, I mean, we're going to go to Trump now with this stuff, with whatever. These are two nightmare candidates. They're nightmare people. Their narcissism and their self-involvement is so, in your face. All right, let's go to that here. First, let me show you this again. Remember this from, I don't know, earlier in the video?
Give me the exact number of murderers you let loose in this country.
See, Kamala Harris admits here, right, that she did release an undocumented, illegal alien, which she called that person back then when she, was less of a liberal Democrat, into the society. And the person almost killed, the guy almost killed somebody else. And so, this thing that Alec Baldwin said is actually true. Like, she's admitting that she did that. She was releasing these criminals, and she wasn't doing it because she was trying to make the society better or she's trying to help the criminals. She was doing it for self-promotion. I mean, it's obvious that's the case when you look into the details, because the programs don't exist today, so they're failures. If they were great, they would be still working on them, right? It's just something she made up to write a book, and so that she could say that she accomplished stuff. And then they get up and they say these things. Trump does the same thing. He lies about his successes. They're often failures, right? So they all do this. But it's all this self-promotional bullshit, right? So let's get into the Trump stuff here. All right, so there's this thing that they do here. It's some kind of Catholic thing. There's a bishop or a cardinal or something here. Here's the guy who's the owner of the Patriots, right? Some of these other famous people. And Kamala Harris refused to go to this thing because I don't know why. But Donald Trump did. And it's usually that two candidates come and they sort of joke around and roast each other. But she didn't want to show up for this, right? Which is another bad sign for her. But he starts off here.
Tradition holds that I'm supposed to tell a few self-deprecating jokes this evening. So here it goes.
Look at the miserable ghoul Chucky Schumer here, right? This is the Alfred E. Smith Memorial Foundation dinner. And again, it's some kind of rite of passage. It's kind of a little bit like a roast. So Trump starts off by saying he's going to do some self-deprecating humor here.
Self-deprecating jokes this evening. So here it goes. Nope. I've got nothing. I've got nothing.
Yeah, that's not funny. Because there's plenty for you to say. But he never says anything about himself because he thinks he's perfect. He literally thinks he's perfect, right? This clown. And people believe him, like his supporters.
There's nothing to say.
You know, he's even smiling, Chucky Schumer. You know, there's this whole thing where they're supposed to be a club, and they come together, but it's gotten contentious. Like these fake acting groups of, you know, divisive people now are actually hate each other, right? Where they used to, you know, joke about how they were flim-flamming the people, you know, the muggles, right? Now they actually do hate each other. So much so that Kamala Harris wouldn't show up.
I guess I just don't see the point of taking shots at myself when other people have been shooting at me for a hell of a long time and they shoot at.
A hell of a long time. 2 months, right? Like, what are you talking about? So fake, right? Like, this whole thing is... We'll get into it with the McDonald's thing. It's going to tie into the McDonald's thing. The fake shooting stuff.
You know, they say about presidents, they say...
They're laughing about it.
That Andrew Jackson was the president that was the most meanly treated. His wife...
He was shot, like, I think twice and stabbed on different occasions. Like, he had legitimate attempts where, like, he was shot and...
died. She died of heartache.
His wife died of heartache. Would she die of heartache when she banged a stripper? Man, Lania.
She was heartbroken at the way they treated him. And they say that second was Abraham Lincoln, but he was in charge of the Civil War, you know. So, but those were the two, Andrew Jackson. Up until me, now they say it's not even close. There's never been a president that's been treated so badly.
Okay, so who's they that says that? Who's they? It's not the news media. It's not political historians. Nobody says that you've been treated worse than all these people. They didn't deserve the treatment that they got the way you deserve the treatment you're getting, right? You're completely contentious and you completely provoke these people. You know, don't pretend you're a victim. Like he's always being a victim. Of course, the shootings are fake. But everything he's done, he's provoked. You know, he's provoked rage and hatred in people because he's just the way he is, right? Which is, you know, I find hilarious. But the fact that he's clueless about that and won't acknowledge it, like the reason they hate you is because you have done things that that you say things that will make them hate you, right? The hate is theirs, right? The hate is inside them. But you want to be the object of that hate by the way that you act, right?
As me and our people aren't happy about it, but I was treated a little bit rough.
He's treated a little bit rough. Poor little Donnie.
But I don't mind it somehow, and I think it's just part of the game. I'd like to thank our MC this evening, Jim Gaffigan. Most recently, Jim has been playing Tim Walsh on Saturday Night Live. And that'll be a very short gig, I hope, Jim.
Boom.
It was fun while it lasted, wasn't it? Let's see how that lasts. It better be quick. We don't want him, and I'm not going to say anymore. But
he's not supposed to be political here.
Fortunately, Governor Walsh isn't here himself, but don't worry, he'll say that he was. He's going to say he was.
Kaboom.
I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have periods, but then I met Tim Walsh.
Boom.
The stupid show, The View, is so bad now that the other day I was watching it and thinking to myself, you know what? They really need to bring Rosie O'Donnell back.
Where's that come from? Like, look at this guy. Gillette.
That show is bad. Those people are bad. I know every one of them, and they are bad news.
They're bad news over there. They hate me. They say mean things.
And it doesn't do very well either. I always like to
It's
say,
horrible, right? Like, he gets away. He gets off script here. He starts politicking.
Ratings are very important. When they don't do well, it doesn't do very well. As I look around the dais, I see all of the usual suspects. For instance, Mayor Adams. I'd like to poke some fun at Eric, but I'm going to be nice. I just want to be nice because I know.
Look at him. He's like completely bummed because he's getting ousted. He's going to have to resign. Like he's like totally guilty of shit, right?
What it's like to be persecuted by the DOJ for speaking out against open borders. We were persecuted, Eric. I was persecuted, and so are you, Eric.
Eric isn't into. Please leave my name out of it.
The mayor's dietary restrictions.
Okay, so there's this, right? So it's just a.
Well known, but I've got to say, I've never met a person who's a vegan who liked turkey so much. There's something about him with turkey. I just found that out today, and I haven't been in New York that much.
Yeah, because you get these joke writers. So it's horrible when he can't come up with anything self-deprecating. So Trump goes to McDonald's. And he works at McDonald's in Pennsylvania for a day. And it becomes this publicity stunt. You see all the people out there, right? And...
Hello, everybody. I'm having a lot of fun here, everybody.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Look at all the fake news over there. Hello, everybody.
Okay, so they knew he's... You know, if these people are coming up to the drive-thru, they can't be randos. They can't be random people. Because people keep guns in their car, right? And so anybody passing through has to be screened. They have to check them for weapons. They have to be like basically actors and people that Trump hand-selected, right? Like this family. So everybody who says something here and they're like worshiping Trump or being nice to him, it's because they've been hand-selected. They're not bringing anybody at random who might say something that, you know, Trump doesn't want to hear. But certainly, because of the assassination attempts, they can't allow any just normal people near them without those people passing through some sort of screening process, right? So this thing is 100% fake. None of these people are, you know, these people are all aware of that. This is staged. There's nothing real here. You know, he could have another fake assassination attempt here. So it has to be completely contrived.
You can fake this,
And
right?
you know, this is compliments of Trump, okay?
Yes.
You mean Trump's campaign? You mean people who donate their hard-earned money? You know, Trump harasses people. I mean, they just keep on. If you give him your number, he harasses you. I've heard this like numerous times. Like you can't get away from him. You can block him, and he just calls back with a different number, harassing people for money. I don't know if Kamala Harris is doing the same thing.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Yes.
please don't let the United States become Brazil, my native Brazil.
Oh, we'll keep it
Please,
good.
Please.
Don't let much the United States become Brazil. It's completely staged, right? This isn't an organic interaction. We know it because, you know, he's vulnerable to these people, so they have to be screened, right? No one can deny that, right? Okay, so let me just add to that here. So I'm going to show you when he comes into the McDonald's. He meets the owner. It's all set up for him. They have an apron. There's camera crews. There's media. Like everyone knew this was going to happen. Like everybody who's at this McDonald's knows it's going to happen. There is, you know, what Trump says is 1,000 people out there watching him. So at least hundreds, you know, at least 20, you know, whatever. But you can see the people out there. So there's press. There's the Secret Service. When someone like this goes somewhere like this, and this is a hard, you know, it isn't an easy place to keep safe because it's McDonald's. It's surrounded by other businesses. It's probably in some sort of strip mall area, you know, where all there's other things are going on. They're probably messing up traffic. I mean, all these things. Like people are driving by going, what's going on, right? And, you know, it might have been publicized that Trump was going to do this ahead of time. Who knows what's going on with this? But all the people know. So this is a known event that people know about that are there. So everybody knows, including the customers. And like I said, the customers have to be screened. We know about the fake assassination attempts before. So these people are hand-picked, right? They're Trump fans, and every one of them loves Trump as they come in. They're psyched to see him. And they're saying things that Trump would like them to say, right? Because they're actors. They're Trump people. And if he's willing to stage this, then why wouldn't he be willing to stage an assassination attempt? I mean, he's just staged so many things. He's acted. A lot of his Apprentice was staged. It's a whole other thing I'll get to, I guess maybe next time, about the Apprentice being rigged, MSNBC whining about that, right? Like now they care about it, even though it's part of their network or their umbrella of networks. I mean, it's a whole thing. But Trump's an actor. He's a reality TV star. He's a politician, and all these guys do these stage political theater events, and it's fake as fuck. It's amazing all these other truthers, because this is what people tell me, that all the other truth channels are covering Trump's assassination attempts like they're the one real thing, right? Like in a sea of fakeness and political theater, that's the one. That's sacred to Trump. Like he would never, it's just silly. Everything he does is fake. He's fake as fuck. It's funny. I mean, it's funny. It's petty that he's doing this. I'll show you how petty he gets about Kamala Harris, because he ends up talking about it constantly. But it's just Trump being fake, and the whole thing's fake. And Trump is, a faker. Like he's just a faker. He's a fraud. Everything about him's a fraud. He's never been as successful as he claims. It's all smoke and mirrors, and he's just, he talks himself up. He's not good at business. He's good at promoting himself. He's not good at politics. He's good at promoting himself. He's good at selling himself to people. That's what he's always done, and it's worked over and over again, despite his huge character flaws and his bad business sense and his failures. He always comes back and sells himself to a new batch of dopey people who buy into his bullshit.
You're going to make it better than ever, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, Mr. President. Yes. Thank you so much.
Compliments of Trump? No, your campaign paid for this, meaning people you flim-flammed out of their hard-earned money.
Thank you over there. Have a good time.
Thank
Nice
you.
to
You
see you.
too.
Bye, darling.
Mr. President.
Thank you.
Like, he's only doing this to shit on Kamala Harris. They got all these paparazzo. Like, he's doing this as just a publicity stunt. Like, he didn't work at McDonald's. Like, he got, $12 million from his dad or more, $40 million. He inherited his dad's company. And, and the rest of his family got screwed out of it. And he's just been, he hasn't worked hard jobs or done any of these things. So he's coming in here. And then let's get into the good-looking part here. It's hilarious.
Both days.
You like them both at the same time?
Yes, that is right.
Hello, how are you? You're a good-looking guy.
You're a good-looking guy.
We love you. Give me a thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will. I promise. Thank you very much. That's on me. Okay?
That's on me. He's giving away McDonald's food. You're handing poison out. Like a big part of his RFK Jr. thing, RFK Jr. said that Trump was going to work with him on better health care. You're handing poison to people. Everyone knows what McDonald's does to you. There's that movie Super Size Me, and that guy's dead from like old age and whatever. Remember this guy, he ate just McDonald's food, and if they sold him, they tried to upsell him, he would, like if they said, I want to have a soda, and he's like, no, I get a giant soda or whatever, he get the bigger size, super size, right? So if they said supersize something, he would supersize it. He ate nothing but McDonald's for a month, and he physically broke down. That guy's now dead. That movie's like probably 20 years old or something like that, right? And he's handing this poison. Everyone knows that McDonald's kills you. Like, it's bad food. And he's out there handing it. He's supposed to be the healthcare guy. Get rid of the poison in our system with RFK Jr. was trying to at least, get that out of him.
Thank you very much.
But, Kamala Harris said she worked at McDonald's. There's no evidence, so now he's going to do this to shit on her in this completely contrived stage environment.
I'll see you at the White House.
See you at the White House.
Thank you very much. Hello, fellas. Come on. You have
He's
another
going. Remember that guy you met at McDonald's?
order coming up.
And this is their
I mean, that's
order?
thousands of people.
Thousands of people came in. These people love me. They're all over the 1,000.
Hello. How are you? What a beautiful woman.
You're a beautiful woman.
Look at a beautiful child. It's like the perfect looking person.
You're like the perfect looking person. You're married. Like he just comments on looks all the time. That's all he does.
It's compliments. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Mom.
Good luck to
Look
you.
at Mom over there. Thank you very much.
Those people do not look like they eat at McDonald's.
Thank you, darling. You have a great mom? Good or great? That's right. You knew what to say. Thank you very much. Thank you, darling.
Thank you, darling. You're a perfect looking person.
Wow. So nice. nice.
All right, you're doing a good job.
Okay, these are nice people.
You're doing a good job of handing food out with no. You're not doing anything like running the register or doing it. You're handing free food out at McDonald's window. You're doing a great job. It's just silly. So this is where it all started. So Trump walks in, right? So they have to get this thing completely screened, right? You know, we know what's happened with these fake shootings. But even if there wasn't, Secret Service has to go in and check this place out. It's a whole nightmare. It costs lots of money and wages and all these things for the Secret Service and time and all these things to do this. This is a political event, right? But government money is being used. Plus, this McDonald's is being used as a prop, right? They can't have their normal business. This is just, you know, whatever publicity they're getting out of this. McDonald's probably loves this because, you know, it just reminds everyone McDonald's serves crappy food and you know, whatever. So it's free publicity. But this is like totally fake. There's nothing real here.
Thank you.
These are these guys, right?
Hello, everybody. Sir. My first day at McDonald's. I'm looking for a job. Hello, President
Okay, well, maybe after you lose the presidency.
Trump, I'm Derek Jack and Tony. I'm the owner.
Oh, that's a good owner. Must be a wealthy guy, huh? Thank you very much. Well,
He doesn't own all the McDonald's, Trump.
I'm looking for a job.
Does he? Is he the...
And I've always wanted to work at McDonald's, but I
Because I
never
heard Kamala Harris said that she did.
did. I'm running against somebody that said she did, but it turned out to be a totally phony
It's just he makes things so obvious, right? Like that's exactly why he's doing it.
story. So, if you don't mind, I want to work the French fry counter.
Absolutely.
Because Kamala said she did, and I want to show people I could do it, and she never did.
You're paying me.
How much are you paying?
Hello, everybody.
Indy is here. This is Indy. She has an apron for you.
And good job on the first
I
day,
think I should take off.
President Trump.
Should I take off my jacket? I think so. The
Wait,
press
make
wants
sure
to
you
see
check with
this.
Secret Service.
Oh, you. He's a wealthy guy. He owns
He's just fat as fuck, this guy.
a lot of McDonald's. Okay.
Looks like he's been eating McDonald's.
Great, thank you. Okay. Oh, I think it's good. You want to do that? Yeah.
Mr. Trump, what's your favorite thing to order at McDonald's?
I like it all. I like every ounce of it, everything.
So you eat poison food that destroys your liver and makes it hard for you to think and toxifies your body. So you love eating at McDonald's, the place. I mean, you know, like this is his contradiction. He was talking with when RFK Jr. was out with him. They were talking about America becoming healthy, eating better foods, getting rid of the toxicity in their system, like all this stuff.
But I do like the French fries where I'll be working.
You will be the French fries. You guys already prearranged that.
Listen to Kamala. She said it was so hot. It was so hot. It was such a tough job. But don't you have a man that's been doing it for many years at the French fries, right?
We want to learn everything.
We're going to see. I'm going to learn how to do it right now. Thank
Let's
you.
go. Let's learn. Let's go there. There's that one.
So President Trump, I have Jason.
Need all the people
Jojo's
here.
going to teach you some drive-through.
He's going to teach you how to do the fries.
He's going to be more than happy to help you teach fries.
Let's go.
We're going to start over here on the fry hop. I'm going to take the lead at first and show you the basics, and then I'll pass.
What the fuck are you doing? Like, what is this? Teach him how to do the fries.
So, first thing you do, first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a basket of fries. We're going to take the fryer. We're going to slowly and gently lower them in. So that we don't burn.
Into this trans fat, right? Like the worst kind of food is this trans fat. It's this seed oil that was made, like canola oil was originally a lubricant, apparently, that was made by Rockefeller, that was supposed to be, you know, for car oil. And and Rockefeller petitioned to make it into a food. So it's already, if you see, there's videos out how they make canola oil, some of these seed oils. And they're horrible for you. But when you fry them and they reach a certain temperature, they just become these things that congeal in your system and clog your arteries. It's the worst stuff, fried foods. We know about that. Everyone knows what it does to your fatty liver. You know, we live in a country where half the kids are obese, right? And so this is him. You know, this is this feel-good president who's supposed to eat all this stuff. Of course, he's a couple 100 pounds overweight himself.
Burn ourselves. We're going to hit the fry timer. And then we got a lot of fries today, so we're going to get another basket going. Grab the basket out. Lower it in. And then hit the timer. Now,
Then Trump.
And then we're going to hold him like this.
I've had many of those.
There you go.
He's had many of those.
Probably, yeah.
Which is pretty sad when you get right there.
It's pretty sad you're eating French fries. This here. This goes on for 13 minutes. So I'm just standing there like a dope. It's like complex. She's gonna remember here. Shake it, do it, Trump. Good job, buddy.
And then our last one is gonna go up, and we'll give that.
He's gonna do that.
They're good. You just gotta do that one right there. So grab that.
We give them extra salt.
Extra salt.
Looks good.
You know, you give them the amount that they tell you to do it because you don't make choices here. You don't make. They tell you what to do. It's like an automated factory food, right? You ever see the movie called The Founder, about the guy who stole McDonald's from the McDonald's family? But it's in that stuff. This stuff. Here we go.
She's been with me a long time. She's the only one can afford to have them.
Now, do you want to keep going with the fries?
It was only we went.
I like that.
Get it? Get out of the way, dude. You're in the way of the camera shot. Get out of the way, McDonald's guy. Really, you train Trump how to make McDonald's fries.
Never touches the human hand.
Very good. Very
Nice
good.
and full.
Thank you.
Good. Do another one?
Yeah.
I'll grab it. Never touched by a human hand.
Exactly. You don't.
Nice and clean. My hands are nice and clean.
Yeah, are they, Trump? You've been shaking hands with
This
people.
guy's a good instructor.
I appreciate it.
Wow. I'm going to give a really big one so that, look at that, they're just pouring out of there.
Yeah, you don't
How
get to
good
make
is
those
that,
decisions.
Margot? Here, Margot, have them.
Margot.
She's been with me a long time. She's the only one can afford to have them.
Now, do you want to keep
What do you mean afford? Because she still has a working liver, or because she's the only one rich enough to afford McDonald's fries?
the fries, or do you want to
No,
turn
I think it's good. I think it's good. Now, how about we bag them now?
Exactly. Okay, I'm going to go back to JoJo. JoJo's going to help you with the bag.
Jojo, you're an expert at this, huh? Let's go.
Going to JoJo.
Okay, President Trump. So for our first order that's going out the window, we're going to need 3 medium fries. So would you like to put the medium fries in the bag?
I think so, yeah. So we'll do that.
Look at JoJo.
Because you know who's taking these, right? Mine. Do they ever ask for more salt? Supposing we want some extra salt, can it just go like that?
We will give them salt packets.
Watch this sucker.
So you haven't been to McDonald's because you've never gone to McDonald's. Obviously, you like more salt on your French fries. So this is the original one I saw here. It's an interesting interaction here.
Jojo, you're an expert at this, huh?
Yes.
How long have you done this? How long have you been here?
I've been working with McDonald's 10 plus.
10 plus. Wow. All different jobs. She doing a good job?
10 plus years. Now he's going to ask her boss.
Excellent job.
She better, right?
That was an excellent job.
She's beautiful.
She's beautiful. He taps her on the shoulder. It's so weird.
All different jobs. She doing a good job?
That was an excellent job.
She better, right?
That was an excellent job.
She's beautiful. Let's go.
All right.
How many would you put in a bag like this? Like 6 you could? 6
No,
mediums?
5 is fine.
5?
Would fit the most. First order, get 3 medium fries, and they're waiting for you.
Okay, very good. Let's go.
Well, they're just getting fries. These people are just getting fries. And this is where Trump goes into this thing. He's bringing it over here.
Oh, I see. Now I'm going to see that. Oh, that's your customer out there.
Yes.
Wow.
He's waiting.
It's pretty good. Okay.
You know, it's called
let's go.
fast food, Trump. It's called fast fucking food, bro.
Do you believe this? Look at this guy. He's a MAGA guy all the way.
It's weird. They got MAGA guys out there.
First order. Yep.
Well, that's a good-looking group. Hello, everybody.
They're good looking. So he said she was beautiful, said that good looking. All he ever does is comment on people's looks. What about the guy's thighs and his, well, how about his thighs? He's got, what kind of waist does he have? And shoulders.
This
just
not
so
a normal
weird.
situation, is it? What a good-looking family.
What a good-looking family. Wow, they're amazing. This family of people that are actors and models and people that they handpick for your McDonald's debut as baking fries and handing shit out for free.
You produce those good-looking kids. Oh, they look like what? They look like what? How are you?
Hey, you wait, give us a shake stand. Forget what take. That's what you do. Don't worry about the people behind you. They're not
There'll
hungry.
be no charge. Trump is paying for it. Is that
Trump's
okay?
paying for it. Actually, if you donate it, you pay for it yourself because
Oh, you're going to some extra stuff.
Oh, okay, great.
This is all on Trump.
Oh, hold on.
I'm allowed to do that, right?
yeah, because you're paying for this
It's
stuff.
everything you said it would be.
It's better be. It's going to be the best yet. I made it myself.
You're the man. Thank
No, you didn't. You watched some guy tell you how to make fries and look at the video here.
Have a good time.
That's so fake. Just so freaking bad.
Hi, Mom.
Good luck to you.
We saw that's the family there. There's different families here.
Okay?
Yes, thank you. Mr. President.
There's the Brazil stuff there. So that's just all the
Come on,
thing.
you know, if you look at really what's happening, look at the crowd over there. Look how happy everybody is.
Look at how happy they are to be outside of McDonald's looking at this dopey fake billionaire M&F hand out free French fries.
They're happy because they want hope. They need hope. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, there's nothing more hopeful than eating McDonald's fucking poison food. I mean, it's the worst of the worst, you fuck. And this is so bad.
More than hope. We're going to take hope and make it fact.
Mr. President, you actually have worked at McDonald's now versus...
Now I have worked at McDonald's. I've now worked for 15 minutes more than Kamala. Okay?
Like, so petty, so stupid, so silly. You didn't work at McDonald's. It's so fake, the whole thing. And McDonald's sucks. I mean, just...
She never worked here. I've now worked 15 minutes more than Kamala. So
Congratulations. You worked at
worked
McDonald's.
at McDonald's.
Like, now definitely you deserve to be president more. Because Kamala said she worked at McDonald's, but you actually pretended to for 15 minutes.
I'm going to say, why? Because she's lying, Kamala. That's why. Why would she lie? She shouldn't lie about it. McDonald's confirmed 4 times now she never worked. She never worked here. But let's not talk about that.
Yeah, but you've talked about, like, through the whole reason you're doing this is to shit on Kamala in such a petty, ridiculous, immature way. This isn't like you're in the 8th grade.
It's an amazing business. It's an amazing country. And we're going to make America greater than ever before.
Yeah, you can't eat this shit. Like, this is killing Americans. And this food, it's making them unhealthy. And then they have to go on all these pharmaceutical fucking bullshit things. Operation Warp Speed, you prick. Right? So, I mean, this guy just sucks so bad. Kamala sucks so bad. I mean, this is just, it's the degradation of our system. It's so stupid and so pathetic and so remedial. What a frickin' disaster. What happened to Liam? Where's Liam? What's happening to Liam right now? It's just a frickin' world. The world is just like a mess. And this guy, right?
And it's companies like this. Look at the enthusiasm. I mean, that's thousands of people over there. They go miles back. That's incredible. So
The enthusiasm. A company like McDonald's, yeah, they make money off of people's frickin' this addictive food they've made, right? You know, this interview with the Means family, Casey Means, I think her name is, and her brother. You know, you can listen to their Tucker Carlson, who sucks, but these interviews are well done. And this guy the brother talked about how the cigarette company, when they got outed for causing lung cancer, turned their machine of making things into addictive they bought food, all these different food companies, and they found ways to make, with artificial, synthetic drugs and things, to make food more addictive, which we know. These foods are addictive. And people, getting not only just, it's physically addictive, but it becomes mental addiction and comfort food. And these people eating this food and having to go back and eat this crappy food, and they don't know why, and it's poisoning and killing them. And then they have to take these pharmaceutical drugs, and they become these, they work just to serve their food addiction and the drugs they need to keep their body going so they can eat more of this crappy food, and they just become these, like addicts to the system that just milks them for money until they can't, produce anything. They don't have any more money, and then the system lets them die. And Trump is a big part of this piece of shit because of what he did with Pfizer and all the rest of it. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this one up here. You know, I talked about, when I first started making videos here, I used to talk about a cartoon world. And this idea came to me when I was watching, there was some sort of like documentary about Warner Brothers and their cartoons that they made, you know, things that I kind of watched when I was a kid, right? Some part of me knew that cartoons were like stupid. Like I'd watch them, but then sometimes I'd be like, oh my God, why am I watching this? It's like stupid. Like I couldn't really articulate it, or I couldn't conceptualize it. But I knew that this stuff was like really goofy and, kind of beneath me or whatever, but I watched it anyway. And then when you get older, you realize that they are, dumbing down their already dumbed down entertainment for kids. Like kids stuff is the worst stuff because kids are just little people. And kids' minds are growing and they're hopeful, and your kids have a lot going for them that adults no longer have. And, their brains are growing, and there's just a whole level of, competition. Yeah, I worked in this sort of outpatient, not really outpatient, it was more like a activity center that had some kind of counseling. Their counseling was sort of involved, right, in a subtle way. And it was in Los Alamos. And there was an Indian kid that came there. His name was Shanti, which meant peace. But the kid was like, he talked about how he was like, he loved war, whatever it was. And the kid used to play chess against me. And I was beating him in the beginning, and then like he was beating me all the time. And I talked to one of my friends who works at MIT. He's a scientist, and he's like a chess master. And I said, I used to beat the kid, but the kid's always beating me now. The kid was like, his dad was a scientist or whatever, they came from a smart family. And he said, yeah, because the kid's brains are developing, which of course I knew. And you'll never beat them, because the kid's already, if you're just going on sheer talent, the kid's developing his, mental faculties, and you're already done. I'm like 20s. He said, I could send you a few books. And, if you read a few books on chess, you'll be able to crush the kid, right? And I said, I'm not going to, I'm like, it's just something I do at work. I'm not going to I'm not going to invest my free time into, And he goes, no, but I want you to crush. Like, my friend was like, no, you got to crush him because he's all into chess or whatever. I'm like, no, that's just not happening, right? But, that's how kids' minds work. And I remember when I was playing board games and things with my parents, I could think faster than them. And so I would move their pieces or tell them what to do when we played cards. My dad used to joke that they needed just to be cardboard figures. But I'd sit there and watch them try to figure out what to do, and the answer was so easy. And for kids, when you're young, you have that, fresh mentality, and you haven't been dumbed down or drugged down or, beat down or whatever. And they give you the worst type of entertainment, right? So anyways, this documentary about the Warner Brothers cartoon, they were talking to some guy who, in terms of the creative process, one of the people in charge of it said they needed to make rules in a cartoon world because there was no, laws of physics. Anything could happen in a cartoon because anything you could imagine or anything you drew could happen. So they had certain rules, like every time Wile E. Coyote bought something from Acme, it would backfire, right? And so the things he'd buy from Acme did things that were supernatural that couldn't be done in the material world. But no matter what he bought, it would always end up hurting him instead of hurting Bugs Bunny or Roadrunner. Roadrunner was his arch enemy or whatever. And so I thought about that. There had to be rules in a cartoon world in terms of these, these narratives they roll out, all this bullshit and what I now call the show, right? So I used to call it a cartoon world. Now I call it a show. It's the same thing. And so the rules are now getting less legitimate. Now, certainly with AI technology and deep fake technology and the dumbing down of people, I mean, the internet has caused this, the disbelief of people, the fact that people can't mount any sort of outrage and people aren't at a threat of, you can't violate people's principles and morals if they don't have them. And so no matter what you do, people will accept it. No matter how demonic it gets, no matter how degraded it gets, people will accept it. And so that's why you see shit like going on with Trump. And they, and I said this with the WWE stuff, right? And that, whenever I have that thing here, I forgot what it was. That kayfabe thing. The kayfabe thing where they, just no one admits that it's fake. The fans don't admit it's fake, and the wrestlers don't, but it is, and everyone kind of knows it. And Trump rolls out these, events, and Kamala's doing the same thing, and there's just everything's so degraded. Saturday Night Live comes in and makes some bullshit, partisan, non-realistic, completely non-reality based sketch that isn't funny. And everyone just accepts this remedial consciousness because people have been dumbed down and broken down and idiocracy has set in. And so there's just nothing there, right? It's just complete madness, and Trump and his frickin' stupid apron and, serving French fries just because Kamala claims she worked there when she was a kid, and he's made that into a talking point. Like that she never worked at McDonald's. Well, everything that she said is a lie, but so is your fucking fake shooting. Like you're out there at McDonald's trying to make fun of her saying she worked at McDonald's when you're demonstrating that you're doing something fake and staged there. It's all fake. It's all staged. But people want to believe that there's one side is good, one side's bad, so they, you just have to convince them that the other side's worse, or one side's bad, one side's worse, and that you're electing two villains. And if you've gotten to that point in your society, then you're fucked, right? When there's two villains and you're just voting on the lesser of two evils, which has gone on for a while, but it keeps on getting worse. You got to realize at some point, oh yeah, we're not coming back from this. Like, how could we? And the system itself, it's it's always led us to this point, because this is what happens in this kind of system, a debt-based economic materialistic system. It always ends up here, where we are now. So I'll cover more of this until the election. Then I don't know what I'm going to do, what my focus is going to be. I don't, like it's all just a mess right now. It's like a big pile of diarrhea or vomit. How long do I have to stare at the thing, right? And talk about it like I've been doing it for now, I don't know how many years. I have to figure out like some other way of dealing with all this stuff. Because, the election's going to happen, and it's probably going to take some time to resolve. It's not going to be a clean one. I would be surprised if it is, but, either way, it's just going to be a mess from now on. And it's just, what happens when your system's degraded, because it's not like there's just no rule of law. There's no rule of reality. Reality doesn't come into play anymore. The laws of physics don't come into play anymore. The laws of spirituality the divine laws don't come into play anymore. Like everything is just, a big mess, and anything goes, right? There's that other movie, Who Killed Roger Rabbit, and they go to Toontown, right? The guy who's a detective goes to Toontown, and everything, anything goes there, right? Like anything goes. There's no rules of law. It's a cartoon world. And that's what we have now. Anyways, that's enough for today. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.